How many times have you been told that track safety is about to change? And how often have you actually experienced any change? The reality is that words are easy, but only action counts. Inevitably, change is difficult for an industry of our size. But when it comes to the way you're protected from trains, the much publicised improvements have, thus far, largely failed to appear. So if this video was to tell you that track safety is about to change, you'd be forgiven for being a sceptic. But give us 5 minutes to explain why things are going to be different this time. Railtrack has just published a new standard about risk minimisation for people working on or near the line, known as Rimini. It's just a piece of paper with words on it and changes nothing in itself. But it requires a significant shift in the way track work is planned and protected, and this time there's a genuine commitment at the top of the industry to make it happen. Why? The reality is that our approach to access has had to change significantly as we learn the lessons from the Hatfield tragedy. Coupled with that, several of our colleagues have lost their lives working on the track over recent months, which is totally unacceptable. This time, change is not just an option, it simply has to happen. So what are the issues we need to overcome?
It's much quicker to work within a red zone, if it's practical to do so.
We just get less and less access to the railway to do the maintenance.
Most of the time, for the jobs we do plan through the week, there's maybe not enough time to take green zone working.
You're going to be stood around long after, in between trains and waiting to get a T2T and all the rest of it.
It's quite complex with form filling. It could be a lot simpler.
Every one of those comments is valid, and every one of those problems will have to be sorted out. Rimini is going to require action from all parts of the industry, starting right now.
I'll give you the signals.
Railtrack has to provide clear, effective information so you know where and when line blockages are available, and make sure they're granted. The rules need to change so that blockages can be taken quickly and easily, with less paperwork. The train operators have to accept that in certain circumstances, access for maintenance must come first. And the contractors need to provide the resources so work and protection can be planned more effectively.
We've got a clear consensus at the top of the industry this needs to happen. That can drive down. The bit we now need to work on is getting the people who are actually doing the job day to day to believe it can happen and to really want to drive it from their end as well.
For the costs, all this will result in one big difference. Your safe system of work will be pre-planned and given to you in writing together with the required resources. There's a list of possible protection methods, and it must always be the aim to implement the safest one, a safeguarded green zone with all movement stopped. Clearly, that'll not be possible or practical for most activities. But you can only step down if it's necessary, and then only one level at a time, to fenced or separated green and, if necessary, into red zone. The list has 8 possible options, with traditional lookout protection the last resort, not the first choice. This pre-planning of the protection arrangements doesn't change the importance or responsibilities of the costs. It'll still be your job to confirm that the specified safe system of work is adequate. If it's not, and you can't implement anything better, you should ask permission before using a method lower down the list. Either way, if you can't set up an adequate safe system of work, the job simply can't start. Pie in the sky? Well, we recognise it'll simply not be possible to pre-plan protection arrangements for all short-notice work. In this case, it's down to the costs, still considering the 8 protection methods in order of preference. But for everything else, this is how it's got to be. So how are we going to deliver Rimini? Through a lot of hard work is basically the answer. We'll be issuing information explaining when and how blockages of the line will be available, right across the network. We've approved 4 automatic track warning systems, and from December there'll be a new method for blocking the line, the T1, using signal protection only, and a much shorter form. But December will also see the introduction of restrictions on red zone working. Long strings of lookouts will become a thing of the past. Red zone working will be banned altogether in some situations, and we're reviewing all red zone prohibited areas to make them more consistent.
In some cases it would be a lot easier on us. We would have to go out and assess the job.
T1 would help us a hell of a lot, especially on the asset inspection side.
They've got to do their part by planning it properly and giving us the right resources.
We have actually, by going through the methods of protection, we have been planning more green zones.
It helps us with regard to understanding the processes to gain access. It is clear and defined, and it's certainly worthwhile for the industry.
This isn't suddenly going to appear overnight, and we know it won't work perfectly every time. Delivering these changes is going to require time, effort and commitment on everyone's part, from the boardroom to the track face and all places in between. Over the coming months, you'll get regular briefings on how things are progressing and what it'll mean to you. We can't promise utopia. The railway will never be a perfect place. But we can deliver Rimini, which should make it a whole lot safer.